All right, everybody. I want to welcome you all here. Not my normal setup. Obviously, I'm on the road here right now, traveling for AEW Collision Battle of the Belts, which will take place tonight at the Esports Stadium in Arlington, Texas. And last night, I attended Ring of Honor Death Before Dishonor. Great show, a lot to dissect, but this is going to be about the post-show media scrum, which I took part in for the conclusion, I should say, at the conclusion of the Ring of Honor Death Before Dishonor pay-per-view. Tony Khan made himself available with some talent. We had Ian, we had Briscoe, we had Athena. We had a lot of talent. We had Dustin Rhodes and the Von Erichs, which I'm looking forward to tonight. But I want to thank AEW for their hospitality, and I want to thank them for making themselves available. AEW and Ring of Honor yesterday. Coffee is obviously needed. But a lot of information was given yesterday by Tony Khan. And a lot of information was given about the future, I believe, of Ring of Honor, AEW, their media rights and everything else, which is looming. I did ask Tony a question. We'll start with that. It was the last question of the night. I asked Tony Khan if there was a possibility with the recent success and everything he's talked about, if Ring of Honor could be seen on television. And I named two networks on purpose. A lot of people were like, why would you ask Tony if it's going to be on TNT and TBS? You're crazy. Like, that's not going to happen. There's a reason I asked. He basically eliminated the possibility of AEW Ring of Honor, which I believe will be branded as one, which we'll get into. He eliminated Ring of Honor, that entity, being on, again, my opinion, from what I gathered, TNT and TBS, because he said there's a wide, net in terms of Warner Brothers Discovery and their channels, networks. So obviously TNT and TBS were two that I chose for a reason, because we can now eliminate them in terms of a possibility for Ring of Honor being on TV on those channels, at least I would say in the near distant future. So with that being said, again, guys and girls, thank you for joining me. A little bit different setup, not what I'm normally used to or accustomed to. So lighting, everything else is obviously a little bit different. I don't normally like to shoot from hotels. I had the boardroom booked here at the Omni, but there's some things going on here, construction and whatnot. So I had to pivot, and that's where we're at. Met a couple really nice people in the elevator who had some really nice things to say about the content that I put out and everything else like that. So for those men who are watching this, maybe appreciate the kind words. And if you see me at the pool later, say what's up. Let's talk about this. The big thing that I gathered was that the media rights that are coming up for AEW and Ring of Honor is going to be broadcasted on TV. We'll have to pick one of the other affiliates that are under other broadcast channels that are under the Warner Brothers Discovery umbrella, but it's happening. Ring of Honor is going to be on television. It's just a matter of what television channel or station. It doesn't seem like, from what I gathered when I asked the question yesterday, Mr. Tony Khan, who I appreciate making himself available yesterday and taking the question, it seems as if that's where they're headed. It doesn't seem like streaming is going to be an option, or the option, I should say. Maybe they put Ring of Honor on a streaming platform, maybe Max, but it's maybe a second show. But again, Ring of Honor is going to hit television. If you guys have questions, go ahead and ask them. I see them kind of falling in here, and I will follow them and get to them as I can. Again, Ring of Honor will be on television. It's just a matter of what channel, from what I gathered yesterday. The other thing that I gathered yesterday from a lot of questions that were asked is Tony is open to a residency. He very much enjoys the energy that Arlington and the Esports Stadium brought, and would absolutely consider doing a residency with maybe AEW and both Ring of Honor. Again, let's backtrack a minute here. Tony spoke very clearly in terms of what the future will be for Ring of Honor. And it seems like it is AEW and Ring of Honor, AEW/Ring of Honor. It doesn't seem like they're going to be separate entities anymore. So I want to make sure that that gets out there as well. Because that's going to be like kind of the purpose of this stream. And I see your question, Jay. I'll get to it. Tony stated this at the post-show scrum. I don't remember who asked the question, but it was a good one. I think it was about doing a stadium show, but Tony really gave you a ton of nuggets. If you listen, Tony makes himself available. he answers a lot of questions. He doesn't dance around the questions. He might say, I can't really talk about what we're going to do today, about storylines or what we're going to do tomorrow. He also will not give like venue information for the most part, but he does kind of tell you without telling you. It's kind of the genius of what he does in these post-show press conferences and what he really does, because he's had a ton of media training. What he does is he gives you the information without fully saying like, yes, this is what we're doing. So I appreciate that from Tony. He stated that, and this is key to me, that the ROH brand could benefit if he licensed and branded AEW and Ring of Honor together. He believes doing this, more people will see the connectivity. What that also does, which a lot of people are not putting into the equation and what a lot of people are not using their brains for, is that the marketability for Ring of Honor goes up. If he can market and brand AEW and Ring of Honor together to Warner Brothers Discovery, which I'm sure Warner Brothers Discovery would like, and Tony didn't say this, and I haven't spoken to anybody at WBD who would tell me this, but I don't think WBD would want just Ring of Honor, if you understand what I'm saying. That AEW attachment is big for Ring of Honor, and Tony is seeing that. He's seeing the synergies, he's seeing the connectivity, and he also understands that's probably going to get him the most visibility, the most bang for his buck in terms of getting Ring of Honor on television, which it seems like that's happening. There is going to be no separation of brands. I can tell you that right now. There are a lot of people who were asking me to ask that question yesterday. It's not going to happen. You could tell just by this show and the way that Tony speaks about Ring of Honor, that Ring of Honor and AEW are lock, stock, and barrel together. And I wouldn't be surprised if the events going forward are branded as AEW/ROH. That's where I believe this is all headed. Tony, again, he used AEW Dark and Dark Elevation as kind of the topic points on why he believes that there is something missing for AEW in terms of like a bullpen or a feeder system. And I agree. It would be nice to have some sort of separation, but I don't think that's happening. Matter of fact, I'm going to go on record here and say I know it's not happening just by the way that Tony's mannerisms and how he described the future of Ring of Honor and AEW together. It's going to be AEW/Ring of Honor. That's how it's going to be. What's up, Jake? So that's something I took from there because it's just the way that Tony talked. Tony stated that Ring of Honor has been important for the developmental talent as well as the absence of Dark, which I spoke on. And Tony realizes that the Ring of Honor brand would benefit from the association with AEW. Again, something I talked about. Tony was very clear in the post-show scrum about how he believes that AEW and Ring of Honor need to be together and co-branded because Ring of Honor would benefit from that. And I tend to agree. There's realistically, like Ring of Honor on its own, they're not getting a television deal. They're not getting media rights. Now, if you attach Ring of Honor and AEW together, AEW/Ring of Honor, there's some juice there. There's some cash that could be made. And guys and girls, get your questions in. I'll take them all. That's what I'm here for right now. Tony talked about Ring of Honor and AEW as presented at two different entities currently, but he does state that there are a ton of operating synergies between the two. Again, he's telling you without telling you that Ring of Honor and AEW are going to be together, co-branded going forward. When the media rights deal is done, AEW/Ring of Honor is what we're going to be calling the pay-per-views, maybe even Dynamite and Collision. Might be called AEW/Ring of Honor Dynamite. I don't know. That I don't know, but you could tell that the branding of All Elite Wrestling is going to be connected with Ring of Honor. Let's talk about, which is a great question. Let's talk about, and then guys, girls, get your questions in. I will answer them all. That's why I'm here. Again, let's talk about, there's a lot of questions regarding the residency. Whether or not he would stay in Arlington or something like that. Tony spoke very highly of the esports stadium. I was there yesterday. It is a great venue. It's intimate. The sound, the acoustics is great. It sounds like there's 1 million people in there, and realistically, the building is exactly what they need for Ring of Honor, in my opinion, and Collision right now. And it's loud. You could hear heckles from anywhere, and normally in an arena it drowns it out. But you could absolutely hear the heckling. You could absolutely hear the crowd exploding. The Von Erichs and Dustin Rhodes match, people were on their feet for that. Layla Hirsch, insane, that match, the Texas Death match, and people were all over that. And the Briscoe Roddy Strong match, people were all over that as well. And it sounded, like I said, there were like 4,000, 5,000 people in there, and realistically there's 1,200 maybe. So Tony spoke very highly of the esports stadium, and he's right. He loved the synergy that was there, and he would absolutely consider doing residencies, maybe in Arlington or somewhere else. He really likes the Dallas Metroplex, which is smart. There's a void here, realistically, because the Von Erichs had this territory, and there was weekly television here for numerous decades, and it went away. So if you can, capitalize on that market, you do so, in my opinion. Tony states he's not sure it would work, the residencies in every single market, but praises Arlington and believes it's perfect. The market's perfect for it, which he's right. And he's a smart man. There is no way that a residency works in like California, in my opinion, or maybe even in New York. Truthfully, I think you could do a 1 or 2 week shows in New York where it's Collision and you have an AEW pay-per-view and maybe at the Hammerstein or something. But realistically, like trying to do 4 weeks of television or a month of television, 4 weeks in New York or California, I don't know if that works. There's a lot going on. There's not a lot going on in Texas. I mean, Morgan Wallen was here Thursday and Friday, but realistically at AT&T Stadium, Dallas is a hotbed for wrestling, and the market seems to be almost untapped. So why not? Dallas Fort Worth the area is absolutely great for it. I'm going to talk a little bit here. I'm going to talk about, there was a question kind of asked, like if Tony believes that putting AEW for a pay-per-view at AT&T Stadium would kind of be overshooting. I thought the question was well asked, but you could tell Tony, in my opinion, was a little perturbed because realistically, we don't know how AEW is going to do in a stadium show in the United States. But I will say that Tony did mention that he is friends with the Joneses. I think Tony knows going to AT&T Stadium would be daunting, but he says don't ever count AEW out. He says the pay-per-views are all locked in for 2024, but again, without giving anybody an answer. And I think a lot of you might owe some people some apologies. I talked about it. Sean talked about it. And everybody and their mother was like, you guys don't know what you're talking about, blah, 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 blah. Tony basically said in 2025 that there's a strong possibility that AEW will run a United States stadium show without saying it. He talked about how the Rangers are partners of his in his analytical company that he is the CEO and president of. So again, there's a connection there with Globe Life Field. It has a roof. It can be air conditioned. Again, it's about 100 degrees here. So an August show, we're talking about a month later from where it is right now. Lord knows how hot it's going to be. So an open air stadium might be a challenge. But again, Globe Life Field, Globe Life Stadium, it holds 40,000 people. So with a floor arrangement wrestling setup, you're probably looking at 45, 46, maybe. It's doable. Now you go to AT&T Stadium, that's, 80, 90, 100. Even if you set it up half house, like I get it. Just to say you're from AT&T Stadium, it's going to look watered down. So go to Globe Life. No one's been there. Tony has a relationship there. Again, he's telling you things without sitting back and actually like saying like, hey, this is what we're doing. Again, it's the genius within Tony. And I know a lot of you think I'm on his payroll and everything else like that, and go for it. I think Tony is an example of somebody who you could tell is a giant wrestling fan who now has the availability and the affordability to run a wrestling company. And the guy knows everything about professional wrestling, matches, all this other stuff. I could tell you the main event of some wrestling matches, prominent ones, in 97, 98, whatever. And the first time I got hooked on wrestling, but Tony's like an encyclopedia. So I know a lot of people are like, this guy's a nerd, this guy's that, all this other stuff. I just think it's unwanted hate. Tony makes himself available, and he does a really good job of making himself like one of us, right? Because you guys watching this and girls watching this are fans of the product, and he doesn't put himself on a pedestal. He doesn't make himself unavailable, which a lot of talent does nowadays, or CEOs, higher ups do. So I think Tony, for the opportunity to ask the questions, and he really does answer. He doesn't give you the no comment type of stuff, which could be good and bad at times. But Tony gives you a ton of information without fully saying it. It really is the genius, in my opinion, of Tony in these post shows. If you ask the right question, you'll get an answer from Tony. It might not say, hey, we're running Globe Life Stadium in 2025, book it, because he can't say that yet, So I think there's a lot, and I do believe AEW will run Globe Life Stadium. I thought it was the building that used to be the former home of the Texas Rangers, but I'm gonna tell you right now, based on what Tony said yesterday, I believe Tony and AEW are going to do business at Globe Life Field or Stadium, whatever the hell they're calling it. He is a pro wrestling historian, Jay. You're 100% right. Let's get to your questions here. Colin Perry says, do you think ROH should be like Dynamite as a TV show, i.e. AEW Ring of Honor, the name of the show? Colin, I think AEW and Ring of Honor are going to be co-branded going forward. Tony was very, very strong on that. Fits like a glove. He mentioned that a bunch of times. I had a couple other questions regarding free agents, but they wanted to get out of there. So I understood. And they always said, make sure you only ask one question, which is very commonplace. A lot of people take liberties with that. I will never do that. I appreciate the fine men and women over there in AEW and their PR team and the guys and girls who set up stuff. So I don't ever overstep. So it was one question. I asked it about the possibility of media rights and Ring of Honor being on television. So instead of streaming, and he answered that for me. So I appreciate it. But I do believe AEW Ring of Honor will be the name of the company going forward. Do I think Dynamite is going to be AEW Ring of Honor? Dynamite? I think all possibilities are on the table. I got to see the media rights deal. I think Warner Brothers Discovery wants Ring of Honor and AEW to be lock, stock, and barrel together. And I understand that. WBD is going to make a large investment in wrestling in 2024, and they want to maximize that because they just lost the NBA. But it'll be interesting to see if they get a settlement from the NBA to pay AEW. We'll have to wait and see. Where is this? Let's get another one. Again, ask your questions. That's what I'm here for. So Dynamite would also be AEW ROH or just the ROH? Again, if there's confusion, I'll tell you right now, I don't believe that AEW is just going to solely be AEW anymore. I think it's AEW Ring of Honor. I don't know how they'll market and promote their shows going forward, but Ring of Honor is going to benefit from the AEW brand because it's one of the top wrestling companies in the world right now. And Tony states that. So, yeah, I think that's going to happen. A lot of people had questions on X. So let me see if I can get over there, and then we can – otherwise, just type them in right here. I'm live on X. So type them in here. Type them in here. See if I can get on X and see if I can pull up some of these questions. Otherwise, if there are questions that you want to ask, just ask them here. That's, again, what I am here for. Let's see. Hey, Drew, asking legitimate questions. TK's mood even changed. Do you think this is something that all media journalists should do? Listen, yeah, that's my approach. That doesn't mean it's the right approach, though. Just because I decide or I say that, hey, this is the way I would do things, that does not mean that it's the right way to go about it. I understand there's a lot of storyline-driven questions. I was going to ask Briscoe a question, but realistically, they're all in character for the most part, even though Mark did a really good job of kind of just being himself. I think he's such a down-to-earth human being that's why I was intrigued to ask a question. Mark's a good dude. There's no doubt about it. So the storyline-driven questions are just never for me. The in-character questions are never for me. And I really appreciate AEW for allowing their president CEO to ask and answer questions. Let's see. I'd prefer AEW run a smaller stadium and sell that out. I think, again, Globe Life, they'll sell out. I know people are going to be like, you're crazy. I'm not. 30 to 40,000 seats here. You get a good card. I think they sell it out. And again, I think a lot of you guys and girls owe myself. I don't really want one, so go give it to Sean. You owe him an apology because we stated this and everybody was like, oh, no, you're crazy. You're not. We're not. Okay. I don't do dirt. I don't have any inside information or knowledge, but I read between the lines. And I asked Tony at the Forbidden Door Media Scrum if there was a possibility that he would move the IP to the United States and maximize his potential revenue and growth. And He said he's focused on this year's All In. It was a very like, hey, we're focused on the New England Patriots this week. It was a very NFL-esque type of head coach type of answer, and I understood it and I respected it, and I didn't challenge because realistically, like Tony's got a show to do at Wembley. They damn near sold almost 50,000 seats, so I get it. But he answers questions without answering them, so I appreciate it from Tony. Let's see. Do you see ROH being on TNT? So no. And Dagger, thank you for the question. This is why I asked it, and this is the reason I asked it the way I asked it. He eliminated 2 possible channels, he being Tony Khan. He eliminated TBS and TNT. And that's my job. My job is to try and, figure that out. So a lot of people were like, there's more than just TNT and TBS under WBD. Yeah, I'm well aware. But that's the reason why I asked the question, because Tony eliminated those 2 options without actually saying, no, we're not going to be on TNT and TBS. He says there's a lot of other stuff on the, the Warner Brothers platform that we could do. So that's why we did it. And that's why I asked it. Let's see here. Is it like AEW and ROH going to be like when WWE NXT brand separate things, or Dynamite just... I think it's very much going to be like NXT brand. That's a good question. That's a good question. Very good question. One more and then I think we're out of here. I think Drew says the brands won't be separate. So I think there's going to be ROH branded shows and ROH branded pay-per-views, but I think it's going to be attached to the All Elite umbrella. That's just me. Again, quickly, AW/Ring of Honor is going to be what they call it, I believe, going forward. That's what I believe they call AEW, AW/Ring of Honor. I also believe that AEW is going to run a stadium show in the United States. I believe it's at Globe Life. And I believe that Ring of Honor will be on television under the WBD umbrella. What network? I don't know. But again, Tony makes himself available. Ask the right questions. You'll get the right answers. Thanks, guys. Will I be heading to All In? I don't think so. I'm going to do All Out. I'm here tonight for Collision and Battle of the Belts, and that's about it. So thanks. Appreciate it.